Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment and a like, turn on your notifications, all that as we continue to try to grow this YouTube channel. Got some 49ers updates for Saturday on the eve of their big Week 8 game against the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll get to all of that. But first, this is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. Obviously, a brewery. It's a restaurant, beer garden, all in a family-friendly atmosphere in Moraga, California, pretty close to where I live. So often stop by. In fact, I was there on Friday night catching game one of the World Series. Two teams that I wish that there was a way that both of those teams could lose and not win the World Series, but hey, you take what you can get. So yeah, Canyon Club Brewery is great location and dog friendly. It's family friendly, all the above. And also, they're going to be opening a spot in the Livery in Danville, right off of 680. So definitely will be a spot that I frequent quite often, Canyon Club Brewery. So thanks to them and a shout out to them. Okay, so the 49ers made a couple of roster moves on Saturday to bolster themselves, to get themselves ready for this Week 8 game against the Dallas Cowboys. One is obvious, the kicker. Anders Carlson will kick for the second time for the 49ers after the Matthew Wright era lasted one game, bum shoulder, goes on IR. And of course, Jake Moody has the high right ankle sprain from trying to make a tackle in that game against the Arizona Cardinals. He's going to be out until after the bye week, still, I think, a couple weeks away. Be interesting to see if he'll be able to come back for that game against Tampa Bay after the bye week. So Anders Carlson gets bumped up from the practice squad, and he'll be in uniform on Sunday. Also up from the practice squad is veteran safety Adrian Amos. He is a 10th year guy, will be appearing in his 10th season of professional football. Started off with 4 years in Chicago, then 4 years with the Green Bay Packers. And so he will be a backup safety for the 49ers on Sunday and basically taking the spot like a backup role, taking a spot for Talanoa Hufanga, who is out for a few more weeks at least. I asked Kyle Shanahan about Hufanga, and what he had to say was, let me find it here. I think oh, yeah, there we go. He said, I said, what are you expecting as far as this season goes from Hofanga? And he says, I know he's trying to come back this season. That's what his plan is. That's his hope. And I know he's got a few more weeks at least on IR, and we're going to see how he feels after that and whether he can pull it off or not. And so I asked, is it a sure thing that he's coming back? It's not a sure thing, Kyle Shanahan said, but it's something we're hoping that happens and kind of expecting it to, but it's not for sure. So that's where the 49ers are with that. So Adrian Amos will be a backup safety for the 49ers in this game against the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, the starters are Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown, probably George Odom, the number three safety, and then Amos will be counted upon to be a reserve safety, also a special teams player. 49ers had been bringing up Jalen Mahoney, the undrafted rookie from Vanderbilt. So he remains on the practice squad for this game. I think at this point, Mahoney would have to be elevated to the 53-man roster or promoted to the 53-man roster in order for him to suit up for a game. 49ers made one roster move this week that was placing Brandon Ayuk on injured reserve and then promoting Evan Anderson from the practice squad to the 53-man. And by the way, I wrote a story at NBC Sports Bay Area about Evan Anderson, and I asked him, I guess kind of a no-brainer kind of question. Were you disappointed you did not get drafted? And he said he absolutely was, but it's all worked out. He's just worked hard. He's been grinding. Now he's up on the 53-man roster. But he said part of the disappointment was that he fully expected after declaring for the draft that he would be drafted. In fact, he said he started receiving phone calls. I think it was the Chargers who called him in the third round, basically said, hey, we're we're looking at drafting you. Well, the third round came and went, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh. He remained undrafted. And then he decided, because he did take a top 30 visit to the 49ers and he had a rapport with Chris Kocurek, the defensive line coach, he thought that this would be the best opportunity. So now he is on the 53-man roster. Remains to be seen exactly what's going on with Kevin Givens. He has that core muscle injury, but Kyle Shanahan said on Friday that he would not be going on IR. So we'll see how that all turns out. A roster note for the Dallas Cowboys: their running game is not good. Rico Dowdle, there's Ezekiel Elliott, who just hasn't, I mean, none of these guys have been performing. They really just don't have much oomph with their run game. They did sign Dalvin Cook to a contract before a practice squad spot right before the start of the regular season. So this will be his first time elevated from the practice squad to have a uniform on game day. This is a guy that had some really good seasons, obviously, with the Minnesota Vikings, and the Cowboys defensive coordinator, Mike Zimmer, was the coach of the Vikings, the head coach of the Vikings back then. So big influence there. Dalvin Cooks comes to the Cowboys. This is a guy that had 4,000-yard seasons with the Vikings, one season in which he had 1,500 yards rushing, and 2-year total, he had 29 rushing touchdowns. So Cowboys perhaps will give him an opportunity to see what he can do to bring some significance to that Cowboys running game. But, you often hear players or coaches talk about, what's the game plan going into this week? It's run the ball and stop the run. And so from that standpoint, this game would appear to set up well for the 49ers. 49ers are a good running team. The Cowboys are not a good run defense team. 49ers are an okay, probably middle of the pack run defense team, but the Cowboys are near the very bottom as far as running offense. So this is a game where the 49ers conceivably could control the clock and be in a good position to convert third and short situations. Speaking of third and short situations, a topic that came up when I was talking to Chris Collinsworth of NBC Sports. He's obviously the lead NFL analyst. He'll be in the booth calling the game Sunday night. If you haven't checked out my interview with Chris Collinsworth, check that out on the 49ers Talk podcast, or go to NBCSportsBayArea.com and check it out. I spent 10 minutes with him. Fun interview. I did bring up, by the way, Super Bowl 16 when the 49ers beat his Cincinnati Bengals. So check out and hear what he had to say about that. But I asked him like some of the things that have stood out to him as he started preparing for the 49ers. It's kind of funny. I talked to him on Friday, I think before he really fully got into the game prep, and he was asking me now, what's his name again? Or this guy, and a lot of young guys he brought up, though. He talked about Renardo Green, and he thinks that Renardo Green really has an opportunity to bring something unique to the 49ers defense, because with Charvarius Ward, with Diamador Lenore, and with Renardo Green, he says that he sees those as three very good man coverage cornerbacks, which would enable the 49ers to do some different things defensively. And he brought up that, basically this league comes down to 3rd and 5. The teams that convert 3rd and 5s and stay on the field and prolong drives are typically the teams that win games. And defensively, it's stopping teams on 3rd and 5. That's kind of the number he threw out there. So he thinks that 49ers are in a very good spot as far as that goes. Speaking of cornerback and where the 49ers are, Greg Papa, I was on with his radio show with John Lunn on KBR on Friday. And he tossed it out there, like if the 49ers lose or they find themselves in kind of seller mode, or even if they don't, if they want to create some either draft capital or land a player, would they consider trading Charvarius Ward? And it was a surprising question to me because I hadn't thought of it, to be honest with you, before he brought it up. I don't think that would happen. I understand why, because Renardo Green now is in a situation where he does look like a full-time starting caliber defensive back. And the 49ers do have a little bit of depth at cornerback with Isaac Yadam and Rock Yassin and Darrell Luter. But I just don't see that because I often think of it seems like a lot of times teams that have depth at one position after a couple of weeks, potential of injuries. I just seen it so many times where a team that's deep in one position, then it becomes, a position of strength becomes a position of weakness really quickly in the NFL just because of injury. So I would be really surprised. I understand what Greg Papa was getting at with Charvarius Ward and Diomeder Lenore both being scheduled for unrestricted free agency after this season. I just don't see it though. But I do think that the 49ers do they do need to put a priority on keeping Diomeder Lenore around for the long term. Speaking of Diomeder Lenore, he was fined $11,817 for a scuffle against Kansas City, the same amount that Trent Williams was fined for his scuffle. Excuse me. The instigator in the Trent Williams scuffle was Brian Cook. He wasn't fined as much. It wasn't penalized. He wasn't fined as much, more than $8,000 for him. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Sunday from Levi Stadium.